The moment you believe, everything changes. That's not a hopeful phrase or a poetic idea. It's a law, as real as gravity, as certain as the rising sun. The moment you truly believe something about yourself deeply, fully, without hesitation, it begins to shape your future. And that belief, whether great or small, will determine what you become. This is a message that's reached millions but has only transformed a few. Why? Because belief, true belief, is rare. It's not wishful thinking. It's not saying, I hope things get better. It is the quiet decision to see yourself differently, to act accordingly, and to never go back. If you believe you are capable, your mind begins looking for ways to prove it. If you believe you are limited, the same mind begins finding excuses to confirm that too. So before we go further, if you find value in ideas like these, if this message has struck something in you, then I'd ask that you subscribe or share it with someone who needs it. Not for vanity, not for popularity, but to plant this seed in someone else's life. Because belief, like fire, spreads, and a single spark in the right moment can light an entire future. Now let me ask you, what do you believe about yourself right now? Not what you say you believe. What do your actions say? What do your habits say? What does your life reflect? Because our outer world is simply a mirror of our inner convictions. You see, the man who walks with certainty even before the world recognizes him is already successful. And the man who hesitates, doubts, and questions himself, no matter how talented, will always find a way to retreat back into the shadows. Belief is the ignition switch. It doesn't guarantee the entire journey will be easy, but it guarantees the engine starts. A man without belief is a man with the map, the compass, the resources, but no spark to light the fire. He'll wait, he'll read, he'll prepare, but he'll never move. So what changes when you begin to believe? Everything. Your posture, your speech, your ability to endure pressure. Because you're no longer negotiating with failure, you've already made the decision that success is yours. And the world begins to respond in kind. It's been said, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. But I would add, what a man thinks with conviction, he eventually becomes, because thoughts without belief are just noise. But thoughts backed by belief become movement. They become vision. They become the unseen blueprint of your next life. That's why the great challenge is not finding opportunities. It is preparing yourself to see them. Most people walk past opportunity every day because their self-image tells them that's not for you. Their belief acts like a gatekeeper, only letting in what feels familiar, what feels safe. But when you believe, when you truly believe, you begin to see doors where others see walls. You begin to move in places you once felt like a stranger. You begin to ask for more, not because you're arrogant, but because you know your value. And when a man knows his value, the world around him shifts to reflect it. Well, now many will say, that sounds good, but how do I start to believe? And the answer is simple. You act. You take one small step and you follow through. Not because it's convenient, not because you feel like it, but because you've made a decision that your future will no longer be held hostage by your past. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you reinforce belief. Every time you finish what you start, you build self-trust. And belief grows not in grand gestures, but in quiet repetitions. A man becomes what he repeatedly does. And what he repeatedly does becomes what he believes he is. You see, your life is not waiting to begin. It's already begun. The question is, what direction are you taking it in? Belief is not something you stumble upon one day. It is something you build, day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice. And just like a seed, it doesn't bear fruit in the first moment. But if you water it, protect it, and feed it with the right thoughts, one day it becomes the tree under which others find shade. That's what belief can do. There is a moment, quiet, internal, and unmistakable, when a man crosses the threshold between who he was and who he is becoming. It doesn't come with applause. There is no audience. But something shifts. It is the moment he decides that he will no longer live beneath his potential, that he will no longer apologize for his ambition, that he will no longer outsource his power to luck, circumstance, or opinion. It is the moment of belief. And once it arrives, the world begins to rearrange itself, not because the world has changed, but because he has. The strangest thing about belief is that no one can give it to you. Not a teacher, not a mentor, not even the greatest speaker in the world. It must be claimed. It must be owned. Like fire, it must be sparked from within. And once it lights, it must be protected from the winds of fear, of doubt, of other people's voices. Many people live their entire lives without realizing they were the author of their own limits. They tell themselves, "I'm not the type," or "it's too late," or "people like me don't make it." And they never stop to question, "Who told me that? Where did that belief come from? Is it a law, or is it simply a thought I've never challenged?" The mind is fertile ground, and it will grow whatever you plant, whether that's fear or faith, whether that's excuses or responsibility, whether that's indecision or action. And the truth is this: the mind does not care what you feed it. It will return exactly what you plant. If you feed it with belief, it will begin looking for evidence to support it. If you tell yourself you are capable, the mind will begin presenting proof. It will help you see through the fog. It will show you paths that once seemed invisible. But if you tell yourself that you're a failure, that nothing ever works, that you'll never change, it will return that too. Not because it's true, but because you said so. But because you said so, understand this: belief is not built in isolation. It is built in action, in facing the thing you've avoided, in keeping a promise to yourself, in doing the uncomfortable work no one claps for. Early mornings, difficult choices, long hours of discipline. Every time you act in alignment with your greater self, belief grows stronger. And eventually there comes a point where doubt can no longer survive. You don't debate whether you can. You simply move. You simply decide. You begin to live from a place of knowing, not questioning. And from that place, life begins to respond. The job opens up. The relationship transforms. The opportunities seem to arrive as if by magic. But it is not magic. It is alignment. It is cause and effect. Because when you change the inner world, the outer world begins to reflect it. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is a universal principle. And it has been confirmed again and again by every man or woman who has ever done something extraordinary. They didn't wait for the world to believe in them. They believed in themselves, and the world eventually caught up. There is something magnificent that happens when you stop asking for permission. When you stop hoping someone will come along and tell you it's your time. You realize it was always your time. You just needed to claim it. And once you do, you begin to see yourself differently. You begin to carry yourself with quiet confidence. You speak with clarity. You move with purpose. You no longer look at your dreams as distant possibilities, but as inevitable destinations. Because belief does something remarkable. It closes the distance between who you are and who you are becoming. It doesn't promise ease, but it does promise progress. And that progress, when compounded daily, will change everything. You see, progress is not made in leaps and bounds, it is made in inches, in quiet victories that no one sees, in small decisions that feel insignificant at the time, but add up over weeks, over months, over years. The man who believes in himself doesn't wait for the extraordinary. He finds greatness in the ordinary, in the way he speaks, in the way he shows up, in the way he honors his word, even when no one's watching. Belief gives weight to your actions. Suddenly waking up early is no longer a chore, it's a declaration. Choosing discipline over comfort becomes an act of alignment. Saying no to distractions is no longer a sacrifice. It's a signal to the world that your time matters, that your mission matters, that you matter. And the world begins to notice. People may not understand it at first. They may question why you've changed, why you've become more quiet, more focused, more intentional. But deep down they'll feel it. They'll sense the difference in your presence. Because belief, real belief, cannot be hidden. It speaks before you open your mouth. It enters the room before you do. It shapes the energy around you. And that is what separates the exceptional from the average. Not luck, not talent, but belief. Sustained, cultivated, protected belief. Now ask yourself, who do you believe yourself to be? Not who you hope to be, but who you've accepted as your identity. Because your life is always reflecting your answer. If you see yourself as a victim, the world will give you endless reasons to remain one. But if you see yourself as a creator, you begin to find power in the very same situations that once overwhelmed you. That is the beauty of belief. It doesn't remove difficulty, but it changes your relationship with it. You stop seeing obstacles as stop signs and start seeing them as training grounds. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to reinforce who you've decided to become. This is why people who believe in themselves are often misunderstood. They don't complain. They don't beg for pity. They don't explain their dreams to people who aren't ready to hear them. They move differently, not with arrogance but with quiet certainty. They have chosen to become uncommon, and that decision comes at a cost. You may outgrow environments you once loved. You may find yourself spending more time in solitude. You may notice that certain conversations no longer interest you. But that's the price of evolution. And belief is the door through which you must walk if you want to grow. You see, the world rewards those who are willing to bet on themselves. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but with steady faith. The kind of faith that says, I may not know exactly how this will unfold, but I trust that who I'm becoming is worth the risk. Because there's always risk. Risk of failure, risk of criticism, risk of discomfort. But the greater risk is staying the same. The man who doesn't believe in himself is constantly at war with life. He doubts before he starts, he hesitates at every turn. He needs constant reassurance, and when things get difficult, he retreats. Not because he isn't capable, but because he never believed he was. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more opinions. You need belief. A quiet, immovable conviction that says, this is who I am now. This is where I'm going. And no matter how long it takes, I will not stop until I arrive. When that belief becomes your baseline, your standards change, your habits shift, your results follow. You stop chasing outcomes and start building identity. Because in the end, the man who believes in himself becomes the kind of man the world cannot ignore. And as you become that kind of man or woman, the changes around you begin to accelerate. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you have become clearer. You walk into situations with the calm assurance of someone who knows where they're going. And that kind of presence, unshakable, grounded, intentional, creates opportunities that effort alone could never buy. Belief sharpens your vision. Where others see chaos, you see strategy. Where others see pressure, you see preparation. Where others wait for permission, you've already begun. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing approval, you begin receiving it. The moment you stop seeking validation, people begin leaning in. Because the one who leads himself is the one others instinctively trust. But you must understand this level of self-belief is not a one-time decision. It is a discipline. It is something you renew each day through your thoughts, through your habits, through the way you respond when life doesn't go as planned. Because there will be days when the doubt creeps back in, when the results are slow, when it feels like you're going unnoticed. And in those moments, you must remind yourself, belief is not based on circumstance, it is based on choice. You choose to believe even when the evidence isn't there yet. You choose to believe not because of what the world says, but because of what you have decided to become. That is what separates those who finish from those who fade. Not talent, not connections, but the will to hold the line, the strength to keep showing up even when the voice in your head tells you it's not working. The truth is, you are always teaching the world how to treat you through your energy, through your standards, through what you tolerate. When you believe in yourself, you send a signal that says, this is who I am, this is what I expect, and this is what I will not settle for. People may not agree, they may question, but they will feel it. Because belief is not loud, but it is undeniable. Think of the greatest figures in history. They were not perfect. They were not without fear, but they carried something inside them that could not be bought, broken, or silenced. That something was belief. And that same power is available to you. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Right now. It begins with a decision that you will no longer operate from your past, but from your vision. That you will no longer wait to feel ready. That you will no longer live at the mercy of circumstances. You are not your history. You are your decision. And belief is the bridge between who you've been and who you can still become. You may be listening to this in a quiet room or in the middle of a long day. But wherever you are, know this. The moment you believe, the moment you truly decide, that is the moment your future begins to shift. And the world, it may not notice at first, but give it time. Because belief backed by consistent action is a force no one can ignore. So, don't just hope. Don't just plan, believe, and then move like it's already yours. There's a subtle shift that happens when you begin to move with belief. You stop explaining yourself, you stop second-guessing your decisions, you stop negotiating with your own potential. You become rooted not in arrogance, but in quiet certainty. This certainty doesn't come from results, it comes from alignment. You've decided who you are, you've decided what you want, and now every step forward reinforces that identity. This is how belief compounds, not in public applause, but in private choices. Most people never reach this point because they keep looking for permission. They wait to feel confident. They wait for someone to notice them. But belief does not wait. It leads. And when you lead with belief, something interesting happens. Your circumstances begin to bend to your expectations. The same world, the same situations, but now they respond to the energy you bring. You walk into a room and people listen, not because you demand attention, but because you radiate clarity. You know who you are, and that is a rare thing. You see, belief is magnetic. It draws resources. It attracts people. It opens doors that were once invisible. But only when it's genuine, only when it's earned. You earn belief by doing what you said you'd do. You earn it by keeping your word to yourself, by honoring your priorities when no one's watching, by showing up on the hard days, not perfectly, but persistently. And the more you do that, the more unshakable you become. This is why belief isn't something you find. It's something you build. Think of it like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it gets. The more you avoid it, the weaker you become. Every time you take action, despite fear, despite doubt, despite discomfort, you reinforce belief. You're telling your mind, this is who I am now. And eventually that identity becomes solid. It becomes non-negotiable. You are no longer trying to believe, you simply do. That's when your pace changes. That's when your energy shifts. That's when people start saying things like, you're different, or I don't know what it is, but something's changed. They're right. You have changed. You've stopped looking outward for approval. You've stopped outsourcing your confidence. You've come home to yourself. And from that place, you can build anything. Because belief is the foundation of all creation. Every book, every building, every breakthrough began as a quiet belief in someone's mind. The world you see was shaped by people who dared to believe that something more was possible, that a different future could exist. And that same power lives in you. You don't have to be loud. You don't have to convince anyone. Just believe and act like it. Because the world may not give you what you ask for, but it will always reflect who you are. So who are you? And more importantly, who have you decided to become? Let that question guide your actions. Let it sharpen your focus. Let it remove the noise. Because the man or woman who moves with belief does not need a perfect plan. They only need direction and the courage to begin. And when you begin, truly begin, without hesitation, without excuses, life meets you halfway. Not all at once, not immediately, but surely, in time, and in proportion to the strength of your belief. When belief becomes a way of life, everything else falls into place. Not because the road gets easier, but because your perspective evolves. You begin to see struggle not as something to avoid, but as a sculptor shaping your character, carving away what is weak and revealing what is strong. You no longer chase certainty, you become it. And that changes the way you experience everything. Failure no longer defines you, it informs you. Setbacks become signals, not stop signs. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? Because belief gives you the power to reframe the story. You are no longer the victim of your life, you are its author. And when you become the author, you stop writing in pencil. You write in ink, with clarity, with commitment. This is where your power lives. Belief is not just about motivation. It is about responsibility. When you believe in yourself, you take ownership of your choices, your time, your attitude. You stop blaming. You stop waiting. You stop settling. You begin to understand that everything you desire, every goal, every breakthrough, every transformation begins with one decision. The decision to rise above doubt, rise above noise, rise above the opinions of those who gave up on their own dreams. You rise because you've decided that your life will no longer be shaped by fear, but by vision. And when you lead with vision, your steps become deliberate, your mind becomes quiet, your mission becomes clear. People will begin to ask how you stay so steady, so calm, so focused. They won't realize it was forged in silence, built in early mornings, refined through failure, protected in moments of solitude when no one was clapping, no one was watching, and yet you continued anyway. Because belief is quiet, but it's relentless. And it never arrives all at once. It comes in layers. It deepens over time. The longer you hold the line, the more unshakable you become. There is no hack for this, no shortcut. You earn it. And once it's earned, no one can take it from you. That's the real reward of belief. Not just the results, but the becoming. The man you become when you stop doubting, the woman you become when you start trusting yourself. That version of you, the one forged in commitment, in effort, in vision, is the reward. Because the goal was never just the outcome. The goal was to evolve. To live with courage, to walk with truth, to know without needing to be told that you are enough and always have been. This is what belief reveals. And this is what changes everything. There comes a point in every journey when the old version of you must be left behind. Not with bitterness, not with shame, but with gratitude. That version of you brought you this far, but it cannot take you further. The person who doubted, the one who hesitated, the one who waited for signs, for permission, for the perfect moment, that person cannot walk the next path. Because belief demands a new standard, a new level of ownership, a new willingness to become the person you were always meant to be. And when you commit to that, truly commit, life begins to make room for it. You find clarity where there was once confusion. You find energy where there was once exhaustion. You find strength where there was once hesitation. Because belief sharpens everything it touches. Now you no longer ask, can I do this? You ask, who do I need to become to do this? You stop waiting for things to happen. You make them happen. You stop measuring your life by how far you've come, and you start measuring it by how far you're willing to go. Weakoi Dr. Willardur Whitelam called, that shift, subtle yet monumental, is what separates a life of reaction from a life of intention. It's the difference between drifting and driving, between existing and living. And yes, it takes courage, it takes endurance, but what it gives back is freedom. Because when you believe in yourself, you are no longer owned by circumstance. You're no longer tied to the expectations of others. You don't need to be loud. You don't need to be perfect. You need only to decide. You move differently when you've decided. You listen differently. You show up differently. You don't flinch at the opinions of others because you've already made peace with who you are. You don't need validation. You are rooted in your own values. You don't need applause. You've learned to celebrate yourself in the quiet. And it's in that quiet that everything changes. Because once belief takes hold, it's no longer about what's possible. It's about what's inevitable. You begin to move through the world like a force, not to dominate, but to create, not to prove anything, but to fulfill something. The calling that has always been within you. It's been waiting for you to stop pretending you're not ready, waiting for you to stop shrinking, waiting for you to stop saying someday and finally say now, because now is all you have. And if you truly believe, it's all you need. So I'll leave you with this. You don't have to know how. You don't have to have all the answers. You simply have to start from where you are with what you have. And with the belief that the next step will reveal itself if only you have the courage to take the first. Everything begins in the mind. Everything changes when you believe. So choose to believe. Live from it, build from it, speak from it, walk with it, and soon you won't just see the change, you'll be the change. If this message has moved something in you, then don't let it stop here. Share it, comment, pass it forward, because you never know who is waiting, just one belief away from changing their life.